Welcome back, CSE 121, to part 2 of our EX8 rock, paper, scissors. And we're going to get started with some code. We'll just start building up our code here. And first thing you could do is you could go to Documents and Resources. And if you go to Handouts, under, I believe this is Unit 3, you could click on the instructions that are here. Now these are kind of what I did. I'll zoom in here a little bit, and you could kind of use some of these things to start. You don't have to use the same variable names, function names, and all the same things I use, but I just tried to keep track of what I did so that, you know, if you're new to this, you could kind of follow what I did, and then, you know, from there you may try something different. But you could see I use variables, user points, com points, function, user choice, things like that, and some of the output that, you know, if you're not sure, you know, if you don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about what should I say, you know, there's some instructions here that'll at least get you going in the right direction. So that's here, that's a PDF, you could look at that. I'm going to go to my repels and start a new repel. And I'll make a Python repel. And I'll rename this. And I'll call it EX8. And I'll just call it rock, paper, scissors. And again, to start off here, you could look at this if you're not sure. And first thing we have to do is we have to import random, because we're going to use a random number. Now there's also something called random choice that I haven't used. I've used random numbers and just matched them up to a list of objects. So I'll stick with that for now. But we have to import the random module. So to do that, and we did that for our other random number guesser assignment. So I'll go back into here, and I'll do that first. And it's just import random. That's all you have to do, lowercase. And we'll be able to generate a random number because of that. And we'll have to use the randint function, because we'll use a random number of 1 through 3, which it will be 1, 2, or 3, which will kind of match up to rock, paper, scissors. So we'll start with that. We'll throw in some variables here to start. You can make a variable for user points, com points to start. Go in there and do that. Now we don't really need points yet. I guess what we should do to get started here, if I look at the other one, you want to get this thing to work first. So you want to start with some of this stuff. You want to get the input, and you want to get the random number, and then see if that works, and get an if-else statement. And just start it off with like rock and make sure that works, and then you could start building up to other things. And then you could even put it in a function if you want. So let me start off with that before I even worry about these variables. Let's get this one started. And I'll just copy this, because that'll save me some time here. And I'll put that in first. Like I said, we'll probably put that in a function, but I'll put it here. I'll call it uChoice, and it's an input of rock, paper, scissors. And then also what we're going to do is we're going to generate a random number. So we could just call it cChoice, even though it's not a choice, it's just kind of what came up. And I'll create that and call that random, because we have to use the module first, .randint. And then we're going to make a random integer from 1 to 3. So we have our two variables. And these are the things that are going to be compared together to see who wins or loses. So that's really it to start. So that's kind of our main ingredients here, and then everything else is kind of our if-else statements. One extra thing I'll do here is I'll throw this in here, and I copied this, is I'll use the lower function on user choice, so that, you know, if we're just using rock, paper, scissors, it wouldn't matter if they used uppercase or lowercase. We're converting everything to lowercase. So that just takes out some of the variables of what people may enter to do that, and eventually we'll put them that they could only, you know, they could even enter anything that starts with R, starts with P, or starts with S. And again, if they put in anything else, we'll even have something that accounts for that. So based on this, what we're going to do is we're going to have an if-else statement. So let's start with that. So I'll say if uChoice, and you got to use equals to equals, because that determines equality. If uChoice is equivalent to rock, now that's one thing. I chose rock, but we also have to have the matchup. So the matchup initially, and you could start with, and you could go in order of 1, 2, 3, and that just makes it easier. And then we're going to use the AND operator, which is lowercase and. If you ever used JavaScript, you might have seen something like that, which doesn't work here. And you might see this with SQL, but here we're just doing lowercase and. And then it's and, that means both of these things have to be true. cChoice, and it's going to be number 1. So this is our first kind of scenario here, and we have to put a colon, and when we hit return, we'll get indented because everything will be inside here. So what's going to happen if I choose rock and the computer chooses 1, which we're going to say is rock? That means rock equals rock, it's a tie. So we could basically put a print statement here, and we could put tie. I'll put it in capital letters so it's nice and big, and we'll put a reason. Rock equals rock. So we'll put some kind of explanation, and I should highlight this and put it in quotes. So that's the first thing that happens. So if that happens, tie rock equals rock. And what other scenario do we have here? And then we could just go with elifs after here. I'll go over here, I'll go back to the margin, I'll do elif, and we could just keep copying these things. If uChoice equals rock, and see all these times we're using equals rock, and now if it equals 2, what's going to happen? Well, if it equals 2, then it's not a tie because they chose paper. Paper covers rock. So that's going to be like a you lose. And I'll put lose in caps here. And I'll say paper covers rock. So that's the explanation here of what happens because I just lost. And each time there's going to be a tie, lose, or a win and different orders. So let me copy this and move this out to the margin. All these if, elifs have to be on the same place, have to be at the margin. I'm choosing rock. And now here's the third scenario here, where if it's 3, they chose scissors. Now rock crushes scissors. So I can go here and say, and I think I was using capital, let me use capital letters here for these things. And I'll say, rock crushes scissors. Okay, so I have my 3 explanations here, and that's kind of the start. So I could even, kind of see what happens here. I could run this, and I'll choose lowercase rock, because that's all I have. And it says you lose, because paper covers rock. So that told me that they chose paper. Computer chose paper. Now you could have something that says computer chose paper or something like that. Another if it's 1, you could have different statements there. Computer chose paper, because if it's 1, you could have another print statement that says computer chose paper, whatever. So you could do as much as you want. And now, unfortunately, we can't try again here. So we're going to have to figure out something that tries again. And what I eventually did was I put this whole thing, all this stuff, even generating the input, generating the random number, all that stuff, I basically put in a function so that I could rerun that function. The function could get rerun. And I'll just start that, just put it in a function to start. Let me run a function here, or create a function, I should say. And I'll just say def, and I'll call it user choice, because that's kind of what's happening here. User pick or user choice. I called it user choice, so I'll stick with that. Remember to put the parentheses and a colon. And when you do that, it's going to show you that everything needs to be indented. Well, I didn't do that yet. So what I'm going to have to do to put everything inside here is just hitting my tab key, which should make it like 4 spaces. Now if you do these have to get indented too. So all the things inside of if have to be indented. Now that I indented everything, everything's okay. And now if I go to run this, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen because we defined a function, but we're not running it. And we could run it after we define the function. So I'm going to put an extra line down here. I'll put an extra space in between. I'll move that out to the margin, and I'll just run user choice. And I say running the function. It's actually calling the function is what it is. And I could choose it right here. I put that, and that will basically, once the code's run, it should get to user choice, and it should run the function. So it should look the way it looked the first time. And again, if I choose R, nothing happens because I didn't do anything with R. Now, before I start copying and pasting all this, what I'm going to do here is user choice. There's another thing called starts with, and if I look at my other one here, you can see that it says starts with, and then in parentheses it has a letter. So that's like a string function we could use in here, and it's user choice dot. It uses dot syntax. uChoice dot starts with R, and I'll just go back here and put that in and kind of replace this. Even though I found the first one works, but we're going to say not equals rock. We're going to say if it starts with rock, or if it starts with R. So let me just put a dot, and then starts with, and then parentheses. We'll just put an R, small r like that. And then all of these should have that. So let me just copy this. And I had one where it equals true, but I don't think I need that. So I think I'm just going to paste these over. And again, I'm pasting these before I do too much. I don't want to be pasting these over 9 of them. I might as well just paste them over 3 right now to get started. And I'll get them in there and make sure I don't have any, because we got a lot of code here, a lot of chance for mistakes. So I'll make sure there's no mistakes yet. And I'll see if this works if I starts with R. Now, obviously I can't choose paper or scissors yet, but I'll see if this works. Let me run it one more time, and I'll try R. And it says tie rock equals rock. And I'll run it again, and I'll choose R. And I'll say you lose, rock crushes scissors. So it's working. but we can't make it happen again. What's going to happen is we're going to have to replay this thing again. And we can basically put user choice as an option in some of these if we lose. Like if we just wanted to happen one time, if we just wanted to go until you won, if that was your idea, well, we'll just go until you win. What we could do here is we could just basically have anytime you lost or you tied, you could throw this user choice function in here again and just kind of call it within the user choice function, which sounds kind of odd to do that, but we could do that. So what I'm going to do here, and I'll pause the video, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these things here, and I'll even try to put little dividers so they're easier to see, choosing rock, and that way you don't have to watch me do all this. And then what we'll do is we'll drop user choice in every time when we lose or tie. That way it'll replay again, and then hopefully it'll stop. We'll get like a win kind of after we actually win it. Okay, and I just copied these and I just put little comments in here. Choose scissors, choose paper, choose rock. So that way they're kind of broken up, even though it's these kind of statements here. And these could be elifs. I could just make these L because they're not starting over. So these could be L because it's basically all starting with one if, and then they're all elifs after that. It's kind of go down in sequence to check things. These are going to be P because we're choosing paper. And then these down here are going to be S because we're choosing scissors. And you could leave these numbers, you could leave it in sequence 1, 2, 3, even though the answers are going to be different, because now, if we look at it this way, if we choose paper, if we choose paper and it's rock, we lose. So, these things get kind of messed up. That's why eventually it's nice to almost make variables that do these things. That way we don't have to move them around and copy and paste, because right now I'd have to do this. I'd have to say, okay, if I chose paper and they have rock, I would actually get this one. So this one would be here. You lose because paper covers rock. And then if I chose paper and they chose paper, it would be the tie, and that would be paper equals paper. And I won't. And then this last one, obviously that's going to be the win. You win because paper covers rock. I lose. This one I win. Paper covers rock. I'm sorry. I win if paper covers rock. And down here, if they choose scissors and I have paper, I lose because scissors cuts paper. So I want to have all the kind of options that are here. So I have all these options. So now I have the right sequences here. I'm choosing paper 3 times. We have the 1, 2, 3. They're choosing rock, paper, scissors, and I just want to make sure that everything evens up. Okay, so I'll pause it here and I'll finish these. Okay, I have hopefully all my responses kind of correct here based on what I've chosen and what they've chosen. We'll find out once we play, but I have everything I need here. And again, there's other ways to do this, but this is the way I kind of started it out. And it kind of makes sense, although it takes some editing here. Now what we want to do is make this, like if we play it right now, let's just see what happens. I'll choose scissors. Since I lost because rock crushes scissors. Well, that makes sense, but now the game's over. So what we want to do is kind of restart it. And what we could do is we can actually replay this. We can take this function and kind of run it within itself. Every time you either lose, wait, I have a lose here. Which one is this? You choose rock, you win. This should be a win down here. A win, tie, and a lose each time. So we may have to fix things as we go. But what we want to do here is, if it's a tie or if it's a lose, we're going to put another kind of statement in here to happen, and we're just going to throw the function in there. And after the lose, we'll make it play again. And if you win, we're not going to put anything right now. We'll just see what happens. So, because it may just end. And here's a lose. So every time we lose or tie, we're going to just run the function again and see what happens. And I don't want it with a win. I'll put that there, and I'll put this in caps. That's what we have so far. So we're just kind of taking the same function and throwing it inside and replaying it. Now let's see how this works. Okay, I'll choose R. Now I won, game over. All right, let's try it again. Move this up a little bit. And tie, rock equals rock. So now it gives me a prompt to start over, which is good. So I'll choose rock again. Okay, there's a tie, so it's making me go again. I win, it's over. So that actually, that actually works. We're just adding more things to this, but that technically works. Even if you wanted the prompt to be after that, you could put a new line in there somewhere with all all the ones that tie or lose, you could put a new line statement so that it puts another kind of break before the next one, you know, when you get to choose rock or something like that. But that actually works. Okay, so that's what we want. So if that's working, our first test is making sure it's working. So right now what's happening is it's letting us retry if we get it wrong, and if we get it right, it stops. So that's technically it's working. So that's a big part of what we're doing. All the other things we're going to do after this is more kind of tweaking. So I'm going to stop here with part 2. And if you got this working, you're off to a good start.